First contact shock. The vast emptiness of space stretched before Captain Marcus Harrington as he stood on the observation deck of the United Earth ship Thunderchild. 15 years patrolling the outer reaches of human space, and the most exciting thing they'd encountered was the occasional asteroid field or solar flare. The massive battleship, with its gleaming hull and imposing silhouette, continued its silent journey through the darkness. "Another quiet day in the void," Harrington murmured, running his hand across his weathered face. The small scar above his right eyebrow, a souvenir from the Mars colony uprising, twitched slightly as he frowned. "Some might call that a blessing, Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Eliza Frost, his executive officer. Her dark eyes reflected the starlight as she approached. "Quiet means no one's shooting at us." Harrington nodded but couldn't mask his disappointment. He'd joined the United Earth Defense Force to explore, to discover, to make history. Instead, he'd spent his career filing reports that no one read and patrolling sectors where nothing happened. "Captain," called Ensign Rohan Patel from the sensor station, his voice breaking the monotony. "I'm detecting an unusual energy signature at the edge of our patrol sector." Harrington straightened, suddenly alert. "What kind of signature?" "Nothing I've ever seen before, sir. It's moving, and the pattern is too regular to be natural." The bridge crew turned toward their captain, the same thought in everyone's mind. After centuries of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they might be about to find out. "Battle stations," Harrington ordered calmly. "Not because I expect trouble, but because I want us ready for anything. And send the first contact greeting package we've been carrying around for all these years." Red lights pulsed throughout the ship as the crew moved efficiently to their positions. The Thunderchild might not be the newest ship in the fleet, but her crew was experienced, and the massive rail guns and missile tubes that lined her hull were well maintained. "Energy signature is changing course, sir," Patel reported. "It's heading straight for us." "Maintain position," Harrington ordered. "Let's not appear threatening." On the bridge of the Kalari scanning vessel Empirical Truth, observer Nylith watched the human vessel with all 4 of her sensory organs. Her translucent skin rippled with the subtle color changes that indicated deep concentration as data streamed into her consciousness through the neural interface that all Kalari observers used. "The humans have detected us," noted her second, Vex, whose skin displayed the amber pulses of mild concern. "Their vessel is activating defensive systems." Nylith's skin remained calm blue. Expected behavior, any species would do the same, begin full tactical analysis of their vessel. The Kalari had observed 14 different spacefaring civilizations from afar before making contact. In every case, they had first analyzed the species' technology, calculated their threat level, and developed perfect tactical models to ensure the collective maintained advantage if hostilities occurred. It was the logical approach. "They are transmitting a data package," Vex reported. "Analysis indicates basic mathematical sequences, visual representations of their species, and simple greeting protocols." "Standard first contact procedure as observed in other species," said Merrickx, the communications specialist. "Nothing unexpected." Nylith nodded, the movement barely perceptible. "Begin processing their technological capabilities." The Kalari's quantum computers went to work, analyzing every detail of the human ship, its weapon systems, defensive capabilities, engine output, and structural weaknesses. Within moments, the computers had constructed over 10,000 potential combat scenarios. That's when something unprecedented happened. The tactical display flickered, then showed an error message Nylith had never seen in her entire career. "Error, predictive modeling failure, insufficient data for behavioral analysis." "Verify the system," Nylith ordered, her skin now showing purple spots of confusion. Vex worked quickly. "System is functioning correctly. The error is in the predictive algorithms." "Impossible," Nylith stated. The Kalari's tactical prediction systems were perfect. They had modeled the behavior of every known species with 99.9976% accuracy. "Observer," Merrickx interrupted, The behavioral analysis subroutines are failing because the human ship is. He paused, skin rippling with confusion, doing something our systems cannot classify as rational. Nylith stared at the readout. The human ship had deployed its weapon systems but was holding position. Standard procedure. But the deployment pattern made no sense. The humans had left obvious weak points in their defensive configuration. No logical species would do that. Unless it's a trap, Nylith realized suddenly. They're intentionally showing weakness to lure us in. But our scans show the weaknesses are real, Vex said, bewildered. They're not fake vulnerabilities. Then why? Nylith began, but the tactical computer interrupted with a new analysis. Warning, human vessel far from optimal configuration. Nylith's skin paled to almost white. No species would intentionally use a suboptimal defensive position unless they knew something the Kalari did not. The logical conclusion was terrifying. Either the humans were tremendously stupid, or they possessed capabilities beyond anything the Kalari could detect. Send a message, Nylith decided, then withdraw immediately. Back on the Thunderchild, Harrington watched as the strange readings suddenly moved. We're receiving a transmission, sir, Patel said. Audio only, translated through our first contact protocols. Let's hear it, Harrington ordered. A strange, melodic voice filled the bridge. We have analyzed your vessel. We withdraw. Do not pursue. Before Harrington could respond, the energy signature accelerated at an impossible rate and vanished from their sensors. What just happened? Frost asked, looking as confused as everyone else on the bridge. Harrington shook his head slowly. I have no idea, but it seems our first alien encounter didn't go quite as planned. Sir, Patel spoke up hesitantly, right before they left I noticed something odd. They scanned us thoroughly, but their scan patterns kept changing, almost like they were confused by something. What could confuse an advanced alien species about our technology? Frost wondered. We're probably centuries behind them. Harrington tapped his fingers on the arm of his chair thoughtfully. Log everything, every reading, every scan, every second of this encounter, and set course back to Earth. I think Command is going to want to hear about this personally. As the Thunderchild turned toward home, Harrington couldn't shake the feeling that something momentous had just occurred. Humanity's first alien encounter had lasted less than 15 minutes and ended with the aliens running away. It made no sense. What he couldn't know was that on the Kalari homeworld, 47 light-years away, the High Council was about to receive the most disturbing report in their 3,000-year history of space exploration. Observer Nylith's words would send ripples of concern throughout their civilization. We have encountered a species whose military behavior defies logical prediction. Recommend extreme caution in all future interactions with the beings called humans. 6 months after the strange first contact, Captain Harrington stood at the window of his temporary office on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. The gas giant loomed in the black sky, its rings creating a breathtaking vista that still captivated him after all these years in space. But Harrington wasn't looking at Saturn. His eyes were fixed on the alien ship that had landed 3 days ago. The Kalari had returned, this time openly and with a message of peace. Still staring at them? Admiral Josephine Kennedy asked as she entered the room. The Admiral was a compact woman with sharp features and graying hair that she kept in a tight bun. I can't help it, Harrington admitted. Our first aliens, after all these years wondering if we were alone. Kennedy nodded. And now they want to talk. The diplomatic team is ready. You're coming, right? Harrington turned away from the window. Wouldn't miss it. The meeting room was large and sparse, with a long table in the center. Humans sat on one side, Kalari on the other. Harrington studied the aliens with interest. They were tall and thin, with four-fingered hands and translucent skin that seemed to shift colors as they moved. Their facial features were minimal, just 4 sensory organs arranged in a diamond pattern on their oval heads. Admiral Kennedy led the human team. Across from her sat observer Nylith, now designated as the Kalari's chief diplomatic officer. Unlike the other Kalari, whose skin showed patterns of blue and green, Nylith's skin remained a calm, solid azure. "We appreciate your willingness to meet with us," Nilith said. Her voice sounded almost like wind chimes, translated through the devices both species now wore. "We're happy to welcome you," Kennedy replied. "Though I admit we were confused by our first meeting, your ship left rather abruptly." Several of the Kalari shifted in their seats, their skin flashing brief patches of amber. Harrington noticed that only Nilith remained perfectly still. "Yes," Nilith said after a pause. "That is partly why we have come. We wish to establish better understanding between our species." The meeting continued for hours. The Kalari explained they were part of a civilization that had explored space for thousands of years. They had encountered many other intelligent species and usually maintained peaceful relations with them. But Harrington noticed something strange. Whenever the conversation turned to military matters, the Kalari became visibly uncomfortable. Their skin would ripple with amber and purple patches, and they would quickly change the subject. During a break, Harrington approached Admiral Kennedy. "Have you noticed how nervous they get when we talk about our ships or defense systems?" Kennedy nodded. "I was going to ask them about it directly." When the meeting resumed, Kennedy waited for a pause in the conversation, then spoke clearly. "Observer Nilith, forgive my directness, but I've noticed your people seem uncomfortable discussing military matters. May I ask why?" The room went silent. For the first time, Nilith's perfect azure coloration broke, showing brief flickers of purple. "Admiral," Nilith said finally, "your observation is correct. We have a concern regarding human military tactics." "Concern?" Kennedy asked. "We've made no threats." "No, you misunderstand," Nilith said. "It is not fear of aggression, but rather—" She seemed to struggle for words. "Our species relies on advanced tactical prediction algorithms. These have helped us model the behavior of every spacefaring species with near-perfect accuracy, and Harrington prompted when Nilith paused again. "And they fail completely when applied to humans," Nilith admitted. "This is unprecedented in our history." Unpredictable advantage. "Failed completely," Admiral Kennedy echoed, leaning forward with intense interest. "What exactly does that mean?" The diplomatic room fell silent as all eyes turned to observer Nilith. The Kalari's skin rippled with colors before settling into a pattern that Harrington was beginning to recognize as their version of resignation. "Your species routinely takes actions that our models calculate as having less than 0.01% probability of occurring," Nilith explained. "Actions that no rational military commander would choose." Commander Frost exchanged glances with Harrington. "Can you give us an example?" she asked. Nilith's skin shifted to a deep blue. "Your defensive formations often leave obvious weaknesses exposed. Your attack patterns frequently ignore optimal targeting solutions. Your ships sometimes maintain power to non-essential systems during combat situations. These choices make no logical sense." "But they work for us," Harrington pointed out. "Yes," Nilith admitted. "That is what we cannot understand." Meanwhile, in a secured laboratory aboard the Earth's orbital station, Dr. Franklin Wesley peered at a small component recovered from a Kalari probe. The probe had been found drifting near Neptune shortly after the first contact incident, and Wesley had been studying it ever since. "Incredible," he muttered to himself. "What is it?" asked Lieutenant Naomi Chen, his research assistant. Wesley looked up, excitement clear on his face. "This isn't just a computer. It's a quantum prediction engine far more advanced than anything we've built." He pointed to the tiny component. "From what I can tell, this thing can calculate trillions of potential outcomes in combat scenarios. It's like it can see the future, or at least all possible futures." "So they can predict exactly what an enemy will do?" Chen asked. "That's what's weird," Wesley said. "According to the data logs I've managed to access, it works perfectly against every species they've encountered, except us." Back on Titan, Admiral Kennedy leaned forward. "Observer Nilith, are you saying you can't predict how we'll respond in combat?" "It is more than that," Nilith said. "Your species routinely takes actions that our models calculate as having virtually no chance of success. Yet you succeed. It defies all logical analysis." Kennedy's expression remained neutral, but Harrington could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. An enemy that couldn't predict your moves would be at a significant disadvantage. "We propose joint military exercises," Nyleth said suddenly, her skin shifting to a more vibrant blue. "With strict safety protocols, of course, no live weapons. We believe this cultural exchange would benefit both our species." The human delegation looked surprised. Kennedy glanced at her team before responding. "I'll need to consult with Earth Command, but speaking personally, I think it's a good idea." Nyleth's skin briefly flashed a lighter blue. Relief Harrington had learned. "Excellent. We can begin preparations while awaiting your official response." After the meeting, Harrington caught up with Kennedy in the hallway. "Sir, do you really think this is wise? We know almost nothing about their true capabilities." Kennedy smiled slightly. "That's exactly why we should do it, Marcus. They're clearly worried about something to do with our tactics. This gives us a chance to find out what." 3 weeks later, 5 human ships met a small Kelari fleet in the space between Saturn and Jupiter. The Thunderchild led the human forces with Captain Harrington in command. On the Kelari side, observer Nyleth directed operations from her flagship, the Empirical Truth. "All ships report ready, Captain," Frost said from her station on the Thunderchild's bridge. "Good," Harrington replied. "Remember, everyone, these are friendly exercises. All weapon systems are in simulation mode only. No matter what happens, no one fires a real shot." The first exercise was simple, basic maneuvers to understand each other's movement patterns. The human ships formed a standard diamond formation, while the Kelari vessels arranged themselves in a perfect hexagon. "They're very precise," Patel noted from the sensor station. Harrington nodded. "Almost too perfect, no variations at all." The ships moved through space, each side demonstrating turning ability, acceleration, and basic defensive positions. Harrington noticed that the Kelari ships moved as if they were parts of a single machine, with timing so perfect it seemed impossible. "Next exercise," announced the communication officer. "Simulated attack and defense. We're designated as the defenders first." The Kelari ships began to move toward the human formation, spreading out in what Harrington recognized as a classic encirclement pattern. It was textbook perfect, exactly what he would expect from a skilled commander. "Prepare countermeasures," Harrington ordered, "but let's try something different." He turned to Frost. "Have the Valiant and the Dauntless expose their starboard sides." Frost looked confused. "Sir, that's their weakest point. Their shield generators are more vulnerable there." "I know," Harrington said with a small smile. "Trust me." The 2 smaller ships moved as ordered, deliberately showing their most vulnerable sides to the approaching Kelari vessels. On the view screen, Harrington could see the Kelari formation hesitate. Aboard the Empirical Truth, Nyleth stared at her tactical display in confusion. "What are they doing?" she demanded. "They're exposing their weakest points," said Vex, now her second in command. "Perhaps it's a malfunction," suggested Merrick's. "No," Nyleth said, her skin rippling with patches of amber and purple. "They did this in our simulations too. It's deliberate." She turned to her tactical officer. "What does the prediction engine say?" "Observer, the engine is giving contradictory results," replied the tactical officer, her skin almost white. "It calculates a 97% probability that this is a trap, but also shows that there are no hidden weapons or ships in the area." Nyleth's sensory organs twitched in frustration. How can it be a trap if there's nothing to spring it with? "Unknown observer." "Proceed with caution," Nyleth ordered. "Reduce speed and approach at minimum power." Harrington watched as the Kelari ship slowed, their perfect formation now hesitant and cautious. "Now," he ordered, "full thrust to the Valiant and Dauntless, break formation and circle behind." The 2 smaller ships suddenly accelerated at maximum speed, their engines flaring brightly as they shot past the surprised Kelari vessels and looped around behind them. "Thunderchild, full power to forward shields and advance," Harrington commanded. The massive battleship surged forward directly toward the center of the Kelari formation. In a real battle, this would be suicide, charging directly into the enemy's strongest point. But the unexpected move, combined with the two smaller ships now behind the Kelari, created confusion. "They're charging directly at us," Vex exclaimed, his skin flashing bright amber with alarm. "And the smaller ships have circled behind," Merrick's added. "The prediction engine can't calculate a response. This attack pattern has no logical basis." Nylith fought to keep her skin color under control. "They're dividing our attention. We must." Before she could finish, the tactical display showed the Thunderchild suddenly cutting all engine power. The massive human ship now appeared to drift, weapons powered down. "Now what are they doing?" Nylith demanded. "Observer, all power readings from the human battleship are minimal," reported her tactical officer. "They appear to be dead in space." "That's impossible," Nylith said. "No commander would cut power in the middle of an attack." "Status report," Harrington asked calmly as the Thunderchild drifted toward the Kelari ships. "All systems nominal," Patel reported. "We're running on minimal power as ordered. The Kelari ships are holding position." "They don't know what to do," Frost said with a grin. "They can't decide if we're setting a trap or having a malfunction." Harrington nodded, and while they're trying to figure it out, he touched his comm button. "Valiant Dauntless, you may proceed." The two smaller ships that had circled behind the Kelari now powered up their weapon systems in simulation mode and registered direct hits on 3 Kelari vessels before they could react. "Exercise complete," Harrington announced over the open channel. "I believe that's our point." Later, during the post-exercise briefing, the Kelari commanders sat in uncomfortable silence. Their skin colors shifted rapidly between amber confusion and blue concern. "Your tactics," Nylith finally said, addressing Harrington directly. "They make no sense." Harrington leaned back in his chair. "They worked, didn't they?" "But you exposed your weakest points," Nylith insisted. "You charged directly into our strongest formation. You powered down your ship in the middle of an attack. These actions defy all logical military doctrine." Admiral Kennedy, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "Observer Nylith, human military history is full of victories achieved through unexpected actions. Sometimes the least logical move is the most effective because the enemy doesn't expect it." "But how do you decide which illogical action to take?" Nylith asked, genuine confusion evident in her voice and the rapid color changes across her skin. Kennedy and Harrington exchanged glances. How could they explain that human unpredictability, the very thing that frustrated the Kelari's perfect algorithms, was actually humanity's greatest strength? "Instinct," Harrington said simply. "Experience, gut feeling. Sometimes we just try something because it feels right." The Kelari commanders stared at him, their skin patterns showing complete bewilderment. 3 months later, the first reports of the Vorlax Imperium's expansion reached human space. A militant species from a distant sector, the Vorlax had conquered 3 systems in rapid succession. Their hulking battleships, resembling massive floating fortresses, were advancing toward both human and Kelari territory. In the command center beneath Geneva, Earth's military leadership gathered to discuss strategy. Admiral Kennedy stood before a holographic display showing the Vorlax fleet movements. "They've declined all diplomatic overtures," she reported grimly. "Intelligence suggests they believe their superior numbers and firepower make negotiation unnecessary." "What about the Kelari?" asked General Ibrahim, the head of Earth's defense forces. "Are they prepared to fight?" "They're terrified," Kennedy said. "Their prediction engines show a high probability of defeat against the Vorlax. They've never encountered a species they couldn't outthink before." "Then perhaps it's time we showed everyone what humans can do when backed into a corner," Harrington suggested, now wearing the insignia of a fleet admiral after his promotion. "The Vorlax may have better ships and more of them, but they've never fought an enemy they couldn't predict." 1 week later, as the Vorlax fleet approached the boundary of human space, they encountered not a defensive line of battleships, but a scattered array of seemingly uncoordinated vessels, some apparently fleeing, others moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. The Vorlak's supreme commander, a hulking figure with ridge-lined skin and 4 arms, watched the display with contempt. The humans offer no coherent defense. Begin the conquest. As the Vorlak's ships moved forward, the human vessels continued their chaotic movements. Some charged directly at the enemy, others powered down completely, while still others exposed their weakest points, exactly as Harrington had done in the exercises. The Vorlaks were confused, their formations breaking as they tried to respond to actions that defied logical analysis. And in that moment of confusion, the true human attack began. Ships that had appeared to be fleeing suddenly turned and struck from unexpected angles. Vessels that had powered down roared back to life. The seemingly random pattern revealed itself to be a complex trap that the Vorlaks, for all their military might, had never seen before. The battle lasted less than 3 hours. When it was over, half the Vorlak's fleet was destroyed or disabled, and the rest were in full retreat. As news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy, other species watched with growing interest and concern. The humans had defeated a numerically superior force using tactics that no prediction engine could model. On the Kelleri homeworld, the High Council reviewed the battle footage with a mixture of awe and fear. "They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered," one counselor said, skin rippling with anxiety. "Yes," Nilith agreed, now elevated to the council herself, "but they are also the ones we most need as allies." And so began humanity's rise among the stars, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through their unique, unpredictable nature. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations began to whisper about the humans whose warships terrified even the brightest minds, whose strategies defied all logical analysis. "Never fight the humans," became a common saying among military strategists. "They don't know what they're doing either, and somehow that makes them invincible."